I froze in front of the mirror, heart hammering, hands trembling like I was about to commit a crime. Not a real one, but in a way this felt just as dangerous. Today, for the next 24 hours, I would step fully into someone I had kept locked away, hidden behind years of doubt and excuses. The dress in my hands was soft, delicate, and almost alive, brushing against my fingertips like it had been waiting for this exact moment. For years I had practiced in secret, alone in my room behind closed doors, whispering to my reflection that maybe, just maybe, this version of me was real. But this time it wasn't just practice. It wasn't just fantasy. Today I would live it, breathe it, move through the world as her. Sliding into the dress, I felt a shiver of excitement mixed with terror. Every line of fabric seemed to whisper a promise. This is you. This is who you can be. My reflection looked back at me, hesitant, questioning, but also daring me to step forward. I swallowed hard, adjusted the hair framing my face, and whispered almost to myself, okay, let's do this. Outside my window, the day began, oblivious to the secret revolution taking place in my small apartment. And yet, every beat of my heart told me that nothing would ever be the same after today. I took a deep breath and stepped away from the mirror, feeling the fabric of the dress cling softly to me, as if it had been waiting for my body all along. My hands fidgeted with the hem, then smoothed down the folds, and I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the bedroom window. The sunlight streaming in caught my hair just right, and for the first time I didn't feel like a stranger staring back. I felt possible. The first challenge hit me as I moved through the apartment. Every step felt amplified, each sound of my heels clicking on the floor echoing in the quiet space. I had imagined this moment countless times, the freedom, the thrill, the anxiety, but living it was different. Real. My pulse raced, not just from fear, but from a rush of exhilaration that made my chest feel tight in the best possible way. I paused at the door, hand on the knob, my reflection in the hallway mirror a silent witness. What would it feel like outside? To be seen, even if by strangers, for 24 hours as someone I had only ever been behind closed doors? The thought sent a shiver down my spine, a mix of dread and anticipation that made me realize how much this mattered to me. Today wasn't just an experiment. It was a declaration. I stepped out of my apartment, the city streets stretching before me like an uncharted stage. The sunlight hit the dress, illuminating the subtle details I had never noticed before, and I felt the first true flutter of courage and panic at the same time. Every eye that passed, every shadow, every reflection in the shop windows felt alive, as if the world was quietly testing me. My hands clenched and unclenched at my sides as I walked, each step a careful negotiation between fear and exhilaration. The dress swayed with the rhythm of my movement, and I caught myself smiling, surprised by how natural it felt to inhabit this version of myself. The reflection in a passing car window startled me, and then slowly, I began to meet it with curiosity rather than dread. I realized that today wasn't just about clothing. It was about inhabiting a self I had been too afraid to acknowledge. The 24 hours ahead promised moments of awkwardness, vulnerability, and perhaps judgment, but also discovery, liberation, and maybe even pride. And as I continued down the street, the city hum around me, I understood for the first time that the hardest step had already been taken, showing up fully as her. I found a quiet corner cafe and slipped inside, my heels clicking softly against the floor. The barista glanced up, smiled politely, and asked for my order. No double takes, no whispers, just a normal, ordinary interaction that felt monumental. I let out a quiet breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. For the first time, being seen didn't feel dangerous, it felt possible. Sitting by the window, I watched people pass outside. Every laugh, every gesture reminded me of how ordinary the world was, yet how extraordinary it felt to finally inhabit it as myself. I touched the fabric of my dress, tracing the folds, and marveled at how a simple piece of clothing could carry so much meaning. It wasn't just a dress. It was freedom, validation, a silent proof that I could exist openly, even if only for 24 hours. And yet, beneath the calm, a small tremor of fear lingered. What if this feeling didn't last? What if someone recognized me? But as I took a sip of my drink and watched my reflection in the glass, I realized that the courage wasn't about never feeling fear. It was about moving forward anyway. Today I wasn't hiding. I was stepping fully into myself. Leaving the cafe, I wandered down a tree-lined street, the sunlight casting long, gentle shadows across the pavement. The air felt warmer, lighter, almost like it was urging me forward. With every step, I became more aware of the sway of my dress, the rhythm of my heels, the subtle shift in how I carried myself. For the first time, my movements felt like an extension of who I truly was, rather than something I was imitating or hiding behind. A passerby smiled at me briefly, and my chest tightened, not from fear, but from the odd, exhilarating awareness that I was being seen. I realized how long I had imagined what it might feel like to walk in the world like this, and now that I was doing it, each step felt like a small victory. The reflections in windows, the glint of sunlight on glass, even the fluttering of leaves in the breeze all seemed to witness my transformation. I paused at a small shop window, catching my reflection once more. The face looking back wasn't just wearing the dress. It was alive, curious, and undeniably real. I touched my hair, ran a hand along the fabric, and let myself savor the strange, liberating thrill of simply existing fully in this body. For 24 hours I would not hide, and for the first time I believed I could. As the afternoon wore on, I found myself in a quiet park, the soft rustle of leaves and distant laughter of children forming a soundtrack to my thoughts. I sat on a bench, letting the hem of my dress pool around me, and felt a rare unburdened calm. For so long I had tiptoed through life, afraid of who I was and who others might see me to be. But now every small gesture, the tilt of my chin, the sway of my hair, the gentle pressure of the fabric against my skin, felt like reclaiming something I had lost. I caught my reflection in a nearby puddle. The person staring back had my eyes, my posture, my hands, but everything else spoke of a truth I had long denied. I traced my fingers along the folds of the skirt, and a wave of gratitude washed over me. Gratitude for this small act of courage, for the ability to finally exist openly, if only for a day. A soft breeze lifted a stray strand of hair across my face, and I tucked it behind my ear with a quiet smile. Fear hadn't vanished, but it had transformed. It was no longer a chain. It was a reminder that I was alive, visible, and finally undeniably myself. For 24 hours I would walk this world without hiding, and the thought filled me with an almost dizzying sense of possibility. The sun began to dip lower, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, and I realized how quickly the day was passing. I wandered along the streets, noticing the way my dress caught the light, the subtle sway of my steps, and the way strangers' reflections intersected with mine in shop windows. Each glance, each movement, each fleeting interaction became a tiny confirmation that I could exist in this world as her, fully and openly, even if only for 24 hours. A group of friends laughed as they passed, and my chest tightened for a moment, the old pang of fear, but instead of shrinking, I lifted my chin slightly, letting myself meet their gaze for a brief second. Nothing happened. No judgment, no ridicule. Just the ordinary flow of life continuing around me, and me continuing along with it. I realized then that the hardest part wasn't the world. It was the voice inside me that had always whispered, "You shouldn't, you can't, you'll be caught." I paused at a streetlight, watching my reflection shimmer against the glass of a storefront. The face looking back smiled faintly, confident yet cautious, vulnerable yet brave. For the first time, I understood that courage wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up in whatever form you could, and letting yourself be seen fully. Night began to fall, and the streets took on a soft, golden glow under the streetlights. I walked slower now, letting the quiet rhythm of my heels against the pavement become a steady anchor. Every reflection, from windows, puddles, even passing car mirrors, felt like a silent companion, reminding me that I was no longer hiding, that I could exist fully in this skin. A soft breeze lifted a strand of hair across my face, and I tucked it behind my ear almost absent-mindedly, marveling at how natural it felt to move this way. The fear that had once gripped me tight in my chest still lingered, but it was tempered now by something far stronger. A growing sense of pride and self-acceptance that pulsed quietly with every heartbeat. I paused on a quiet bridge overlooking the river, watching the water shimmer under the streetlights. My reflection in the ripples seemed almost alive, a friend whispering, "You're allowed. You're real. You belong." And in that moment, the city around me felt softer, warmer, like it had been waiting for me to claim my courage all along. For 24 hours, I was no longer pretending. I was living. I continued my walk, the night wrapping around me like a comforting blanket, The quiet streets made every sound, my heels, my breath, the rustle of my dress, feel amplified, intimate, almost like a heartbeat in sync with my own. Each reflection I passed, in windows or puddles, no longer startled me. Instead, it reminded me that I was present, visible, and undeniably real. A few people passed by laughing softly, talking in small groups. For a fleeting moment, a flash of old anxiety hit me. The instinct to shrink, to retreat, to hide. But I caught myself. I lifted my chin, squared my shoulders, and let the rhythm of my steps carry me forward. I realized the fear had transformed. It wasn't a cage anymore, just a quiet companion whispering, "You're doing something new. It's okay to be nervous." I paused at a corner, looking back at the path I had walked. The reflections, the shadows, the quiet lights, they all bore witness to my journey. I smiled softly, feeling a surge of pride mingled with wonder. For 24 hours I had stepped fully into someone I had long kept hidden, and the act of simply existing like this, unafraid, felt more powerful than I could have imagined. The city grew quieter as midnight approached, the glow of streetlights painting long, soft shadows across the sidewalks. I wandered through familiar streets that now felt new, every corner a small stage for a version of myself I had never dared to show the world. The dress moved with me, my hair catching the faint light, and I realized that I had begun to inhabit this identity fully, as if it had always been part of me. I stopped at a small park, the swings swaying gently in the breeze. I sat on a bench and let my hands rest on my lap, feeling the soft fabric of the dress beneath my fingers. Memories of fear and hesitation surged for a moment, but instead of paralysis, they stirred pride. I had chosen to be seen, to walk through the day fully as her, and the world hadn't rejected me. The silence of the park felt approving, almost reverent, and I let myself relax for the first time in hours. I ran a hand through my hair, smiling faintly at my reflection in a puddle nearby. For 24 hours, I had stepped into a self I had long kept locked away. And though the night was far from over, I realized something profound. Courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was moving forward anyway, and I had done exactly that. The early hours of the morning were quiet, the city almost asleep, and I wandered along empty streets that now felt intimate and familiar. The cool night air brushed against my face, lifting a strand of hair, and I smiled softly at how natural it felt to inhabit this version of myself. Every reflection in the darkened windows, every glimmer in a puddle was a reminder. I had lived fully as her, even when the world was watching, or even when it wasn't. A faint thrill ran through me as I thought about the journey of the past 24 hours. The fear, the hesitation, the small panic moments, they hadn't disappeared entirely, but they had lost their power. In their place was a quiet, steady pride that pulsed with every step. I realized that this experience wasn't just about clothing or appearances. It was about claiming a truth I had long hidden, letting it breathe, and allowing myself to exist without apology. I paused on a bridge overlooking the river, watching the lights shimmer across the rippling water. My reflection merged with the glow, almost ethereal, and I whispered to myself, "You did this. You're here. You're enough." For the first time, I felt a completeness I hadn't known was possible, a deep, abiding sense that living fully as her, even for just 24 hours, had changed me in ways that would last far beyond the day. The sun began to rise, painting the sky in soft pinks and golds, and I realized that the 24 hours were nearly over. I walked back toward my apartment, each step steady, grounded, filled with a quiet pride that hadn't been there the day before. The city felt alive in a new way, every reflection, every shadow a gentle reminder of the courage I had claimed. I reached my front door and paused, hand on the knob. I looked down at the dress I'd worn for the past day, soft and familiar now, and let a small smile spread across my face. This experience hadn't just been about wearing clothes. It had been about stepping fully into myself, facing fear, and allowing a hidden part of my identity to exist openly, even if only for a day.